Hello everybody, I'm Kate Cass. Welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about Phineas and Ferb. There's been a lot of discussion about the revival season of Phineas and Ferb since it debuted earlier this summer. Good, bad, fun, cringe, and everything in between. Though I'd say as a whole, the season so far has been pretty well received. The decade between seasons 4 and 5 definitely revitalized the creative team, and this season feels very true to Phineas and Ferb's identity. I'll admit, it's good to be back. That's not to say it's been a season without some critique or lackluster decisions, and the most commonly contested part of season 5, aside from the controversial animation, is the decision to turn Doofenshmirtz evil again. I'm gonna let you guys in on something. I had this year, the 10th anniversary of my channel, pretty well planned out in terms of what I wanted to make. Every Let's Talk About video I released this year will tie back to a subject we covered in the past. And despite how spontaneously I decided to make it, this video is no different. Sure, I've never talked about Phineas and Ferb before, despite being a big fan since it debuted, but I have done several videos on its sister show, Milo Murphy's Law, which is pretty significant when talking about Heinz Doofenshmirtz. Yes, Doof spent most of his time on Phineas and Ferb as the main bad guy, coming up with ways to take over the tri-state area, or just cause general chaos every single day, and that's probably what he's most remembered for. But ever since his very convincing turn to good in the original series finale, every appearance from Doofenshmirtz has been various ways he's tried to do good since his reformation. From becoming a teacher through court-mandated community service, to joining Alka for a trial period, to learning that one day, his attempts to use his scientific prowess for good will pay off, and he'll invent time travel. Rebranding himself as Professor Time, he'll be heralded as a genius who changed the world, which led to him becoming a regular cast member on season 2 of Milo Murphy's Law, chronicling his journey to figure out how to become that person, while still being just as terrible at being good as he was at being evil. I know Heinz's inclusion in Milo Murphy's Law is divisive, but I already went into that at length in my video on that season. In short, I was in favor of it because of the incredibly unique approach it took in following up on Doof's reformation. The genuine effort to make a change and do better, with an obvious success at the end of the path in the form of Professor Time, but still being a walking disaster of a man. It worked great. I love the direction they've gone with Heinz since turning him good. I already loved him as a villain, but his schemes always came off as someone persistently neglected and belittled, trying to get the last laugh against those things that made him feel worthless. Watching him take what skills he does have and apply them in more constructive and maybe even fulfilling ways has been an admirable step for the character. How happy he can be with these genuine attempts to change the world despite being a colossal screw-up. I admire not making things easier for him after turning good, but giving him the persistence and support to keep trying, and the promise that one day all that effort will pay off. So the reveal a mere 1 minute and 30 seconds into the season 5 premiere that Doof had turned evil again for shrug hashtag reasons kinda rubbed me the wrong way. Now before you leave comments, you don't need to tell me why the creative team did this. I get it. Phineas and Ferb is a show that relies heavily on its well-constructed formula, with all these things in Danville affecting each other while barely being aware of one another. The only way Phineas and Ferb works is if all these pieces are in play, and Doofenshmirtz trying to take over the tri-state area through overly convoluted means is one of the most crucial. Behind the scenes, I understand why they had to do this, I really do. No, what bothers me is how they deal with it in-universe, which is to say, they don't. After such a large amount of time dedicated to Heinz's attempts at reformation in pretty much everything he's appeared in since the last day of summer, reverting him back without so much as a mention of those past attempts just felt like a slap in the face to anyone who had been invested in that part of Doof's story. Even if they gave a dumb reason, it'd be fine. Doofenshmirtz is one of the few characters where regression like this could be totally believable because of his over-the-top responses and spontaneous, not well thought out nature. Co-creator Dan Povenmire has given explanations in interviews for what Doof's reasoning could have been, and it's fine reasoning. So why didn't they get it on screen? I've been pretty vocal about my disapproval of how they handled Doof's turn back to evil, to the point that I'm pretty sure some of my friends are sick of it. And as much as I've been enjoying the new episodes, it's been coloring my view of the new Phineas and Ferb season the whole time. Something nagging in the back of my mind that is never forgotten. I was displeased by it, but I had resigned myself to be ready to feel that way for the rest of the season. That was until the episode Battle Days. As of right now, This is my favorite episode of season 5. It not only silenced that nagging in the back of my brain for a bit, but played into Doofenshmirtz's very complicated journey to becoming a better person beautifully. Here's the plot. Vanessa finds out that she's old enough to receive Jerusalem citizenship. Heinz is eager for his daughter to experience the same challenges he did so they can connect, and insists they hop a plane to his home country right away. Upon arriving, however, they discover that Doof's hometown of Gimelstrom has changed quite a bit, which is impressive considering we did visit present-day Jerusalem on Phineas and Ferb back in season 3, and it was pretty much the same from Heinz's youth. You put in one coffee shop and public transport not fueled by hay, and suddenly amenities in the modern world will just crop up, I guess. Economics sure are fascinating.
When did change become legal here?
You can tell right away that Doof is a bit disillusioned by how much his hometown has changed, and is less misery-inducing than it was when he was growing up. He describes how harrowing and awful the trials to become a Jerusalem citizen will be, but when Vanessa takes the test, they change to be more celebratory and civil. Doof gets so frustrated that Vanessa isn't getting the same experience he had, that his innator for the day lets him revert parts of Gimelstrom to the way it was. Now on paper, there's a message we've seen time and again, of someone not being able to let go of the past and having to learn to accept that things change, and that's not always a bad thing. You could even make an argument for this episode portraying that attitude some older people have, resenting the younger people don't have to face some of the same hardships they did because of improvements made in the time between generations. These are all things true about bad old days. But the thing is, Heinz has a very interesting and conflicting relationship with his past, with an endless list of traumatizing anecdotes that made nearly all of his time in his home country with his family completely miserable. All of those humiliating memories, though, fueled his actions as a villain. The joke with Doofenshmirtz is that he has had life kick him down enough times to inspire vengeful scheme after vengeful scheme every single day. And a significant portion of that occurred in Jerusalem.
Whatever, I'm so over it.
That endless array of tragic backstories is what inspires his path in life to become an evil scientist. What should be an upbringing he wants to completely forget and separate himself from is something he flaunts openly. It motivates every scheme and action he's taken as he uses all of that pain and loss to fuel his attempts at tri-state conquest.
When I was all alone, all dressed up like a gnome, it was super awful, but it feels like home.
One of the reasons he's so eager for Vanessa to go through this test as well is to see if she'll be inspired to become evil just like he was. What else would someone want to do after going through all of that? Those traumatic experiences feel like a rite of passage to him. He only wants Vanessa to suffer during these trials because he wants to connect with her with this side of himself that she's never been particularly on board with, being a villain. Side note, Vanessa is kind of amazing in this episode. I feel like she matured a lot during the last summer, and going into this season, she's a lot more understanding and approachable. She is hesitant to accept the offer for citizenship because she's heard how awful Jerusalem was for her dad, and even offers Doof support the few times remembering how things were gets to him. She knows how bad this place was for him even before he does, and tries to be there for her dad. It's a big upgrade from where their relationship was last summer, and I really love it. Doof thinks he benefits from holding onto his past as baggage to motivate his schemes, but being back home does have sobering moments reminding him how awful it was. There's a scene where he goes to visit his family home and his parents left when they heard he was arriving, and I know that's really typical of them, but it broke my heart a little. Even in the face of all of that though, Doof can't help but feel like this tragic past is essential to who he is. It's already a pretty nuanced look at the unique way Heinz uses upbringing, more than I was expecting from a show like Phineas and Ferb, well written as it is. But then things take a turn in the moment that really made this episode stand out to me. As Doof tries to hold on to what Gimelstrom used to be, things start to change when he sees something more important. Vanessa is enjoying herself in his home country. Watching that, he laments that he didn't have that. When he sees how things could have been, it's no longer something he resents, but something he's glad she gets to experience. He doesn't want to take that away from her. In fact, he wants to make it even better.
My parents were never there for my kickball moment. But you know what? I'm gonna be there for Vanessa.
A big part of Doofenshmirtz's gimmick as a character is that he just never learns. He's got big, bombastic ways of dealing with every problem, and keeps firing rays and pushing buttons until things go his way. Until the finale, he never really grew, because that was the point, and his endeavors after that legendary summer were his attempts to grow, but his sporadic tendencies kept him from progressing. This is a genuine moment of growth, perhaps the most genuine the character has ever had. For once, he decides that he's not gonna let his past rule his life or the life of his own family. He's now a father, a part of what will one day be his daughter's backstory, and he doesn't want to repeat history and make it tragic. He wants her upbringing to be better. It's easy enough to connect the fact that Heinz is already kind of a clingy dad to him overcompensating for how neglectful his own parents were, but I think this is where he first consciously realizes that, where he takes a step forward and makes an active choice to make a Doofenshmirtz rite of passage feel full of love and accomplishment. I haven't mentioned this yet, but this final test with Vanessa is also Heinz completing his own Drusselstinian citizenship. It involves passing a kickball to a parent, and Doof's parents didn't care enough to show up, of course. So when he gets on that field to make sure Vanessa can complete that final trial, he is not just doing it for her. He's doing it for himself. Heinz and Vanessa become citizens of Drusselstein together. Not the Drusselstein that hurt Heinz, humiliated him, disowned him, and cast him out to wildcats or on a boat to parts unknown, but the Drusselstein of the present, where he and his daughter can be there for each other and grow together. Heinz living in the past and letting that drive so much of his evil motivation is one of the things that's made him so stagnant all this time. It's such a core part of who he is that it may be tough for him to see who he could be without being haunted by his past.
You know, it seems like it's all out of obligation to your backstories, not something that truly comes from your heart.
To me, the actions and path of Bad Old Days help Heinz put his past in perspective, and that step forward he takes could help him finally grow in the future. Now, I'm not naive. There's at least a season and a half left to go of new Phineas and Ferb episodes, and I fully expect Doofenshmirtz to keep being impulsive and petty, and they may even dig up some more humiliating gems from his childhood in Gimmelstump to motivate whatever evil device he can trauma dump about to his favorite marsupial. This isn't going to change anything short term. I'm speaking more in the long term. Doofenshmirtz has gone through character development, but it's been very slow. He was very aggressive towards Perry in the beginning, but over time, as a constant in his life, they developed a frenemy relationship that has signs of genuine friendship. And looking back on his schemes this season, I noticed that a lot of his innators are still very self-involved, but far less destructive outside of his own building. This outing enhanced his relationship with Vanessa, and it's not the only one that has. Boy, if we could get Roger in on this growth somehow, I would be so impressed and thrilled. We've seen how much better off Heinz will be in years to come, and maybe this turn back to evil he had at the beginning of season 5 made me worry that some of that would be dismissed for the sake of sticking with what works. Doof may have gone back to his old ways this summer, but this episode makes me feel like that path to good hasn't been entirely forgotten. That he's more open to seeing that things can change for the better, and that his plots have a bit less of a vengeful edge than they used to. Bad Old Days really colored how I saw Doofenshmirtz in this comeback season. I'm still always going to be a little disappointed by how they handled his regression, but even under his daily schemes to cause mayhem or better his life at the inconvenience of others, I could see the glimmers of hope that in his own way, Heinz is still on the path to being better and happier. That will, with any luck, result in closer friendships, a more loving family, and well-earned acclaim and validation in 12, 15, 20 years. I don't know, they keep moving it up. I think every new Evilinator sets Professor Time back a couple of months. It's the kind of story that makes me excited for where Heinz Doofenshmirtz's story can go next. And after starting the season off with frustration, let me tell ya, that feels pretty good. That said, his parents can go jump in a Guzum cage. They're a lost cause and he did not deserve them. And throw the Screaming Goat in while you're at it. I don't hate it as much as everybody else does, but it's already getting pretty old.
Take me back to...
Thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely let me know what you think of Doofenshmirtz and this episode in the comments below. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. And you know what? Throw in your favorite episode of season 5 so far. I don't really know what the majority consensus is. I want to give a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including Jinx Productions and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check out any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.